A new chapter has begun. The Philippines has accepted China's bold new offer, a decision that could alter alliances, redraw maritime boundaries, and trigger a new regional contest. This is more than just a diplomatic maneuver. This is the ignition of a geopolitical shockwave. Stay with us. What happens next could define the fate of an entire region. Before we begin, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, because what you're about to hear might just shock you. Now, let's break it down. In a decision that few foresaw, but many now scramble to understand, the Philippines has accepted China's sweeping new proposal, a comprehensive economic, security, and maritime development deal worth billions. This agreement offers China unprecedented influence in Manila's economic revival plans, while promising the Philippines enhanced infrastructure, access to Chinese technology, and joint resource exploration rights in disputed waters. The offer and its immediate implications. China's latest offer to the Philippines is nothing short of transformative and deeply controversial. At the heart of the proposal are three strategic pillars. First, Beijing has pledged $30 billion in infrastructure investments as part of its Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. These funds will pour into the modernization of ports, airports, highways, and railway systems, potentially vaulting the Philippines into a new era of connectivity and economic growth. For a country long plagued by aging infrastructure and underinvestment, this injection of capital offers a tantalizing promise of progress. Second, China proposes a joint development of oil and gas resources within the disputed areas of the South China Sea. This move, if successful, could unlock billions of dollars worth of untapped energy reserves, potentially granting the Philippines a measure of energy independence it has long sought. However, by partnering with Beijing in these contested waters, Manila risks legitimizing China's expansive territorial claims that have been fiercely disputed by both local and international actors. Third, and perhaps most provocatively, the offer includes the establishment of a security cooperation framework. Framed as a mechanism for promoting regional stability, the agreement would facilitate joint patrols, intelligence sharing, and capacity-building programs between Chinese and Philippine forces. While couched in diplomatic language, the Security Pact is seen by many observers as a potential Trojan horse for increasing Chinese influence over the archipelago's military and political decision-making. In return for these sweeping benefits, the Philippines would grant Chinese corporations access to vital ports, shipping lanes, and energy reserves, critical nodes that underpin the country's strategic autonomy and economic security. In the short term, the gains appear immense. Modernized infrastructure would boost economic productivity and improve living standards. The joint energy ventures could alleviate dependence on imported fuels, while security cooperation could offer respite from the threats of piracy, terrorism, and internal insurgency. Yet the long-term strategic costs could be profound. By tying itself more closely to Beijing, Manila risks alienating traditional allies like the United States, Japan, and Australia. Furthermore, the deal could deepen internal divisions, with political factions and the public sharply polarized over the wisdom of moving closer to China. In essence, the Philippines now stands at a crossroads, poised between short-term prosperity and the potential erosion of its strategic independence. Maritime sovereignty at a crossroads. At the core of China's offer to the Philippines lies the South China Sea, a volatile maritime zone where sovereignty claims have clashed for decades. In 2016, the Philippines achieved a landmark legal victory when the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague ruled overwhelmingly in its favor, invalidating China's sweeping nine-dash-line claims. The ruling was hailed as a triumph of international law over brute power, offering Manila a potent diplomatic tool in its dealings with Beijing and other claimants. However, by entertaining joint exploration agreements with China, the Philippines now risks undermining its own legal advantage. While framed as pragmatic cooperation to unlock energy resources, these joint ventures could be interpreted as tacit recognition of China's contested claims, weakening the moral and legal authority Manila once wielded. For China, the strategy is clear and calculated. Often accused of using salami-slicing tactics, incrementally advancing its interests without triggering outright conflict, Beijing now secures influence not through the presence of warships or artificial islands, but through carefully negotiated economic partnerships. This approach gives China a veneer of legitimacy in contested waters, without the reputational costs of militarization. For many Filipinos, this shift feels less like diplomacy and more like capitulation. Nationalist voices are growing louder, warning that no amount of economic incentive should justify yielding even a sliver of maritime sovereignty. Former officials, legal scholars, and activist groups argue that accepting Chinese partnership under these terms erodes the hard-won victory at The Hague and compromises national dignity. In the streets of Manila and other major cities, protests are beginning to stir. Banners proclaim West Philippine Sea is ours, as students, veterans, and civic leaders call for transparency and a halt to negotiations that could jeopardize the country's sovereign rights. Politicians across the spectrum are voicing concerns, with some demanding legislative oversight of any agreements signed with Beijing. Beneath the surface, tensions are simmering. The Philippine government faces a delicate balancing act, securing much-needed economic development without alienating an increasingly wary and vocal public. The South China Sea remains more than a collection of islands and reefs. It is a crucible of national pride, strategic security, and international law. The decisions made in the coming months will not only shape Manila's relationship with Beijing, but will define the Philippines' standing on the global stage for years to come. Military dynamics and strategic realignment. For decades, the Philippines has been one of America's most steadfast allies in Southeast Asia, anchored by the Mutual Defense Treaty signed in 1951. U.S. forces once maintained sprawling bases at Subic Bay and Clark Field, key launch points during the Cold War and the Vietnam conflict. Though these bases closed in the 1990s, military cooperation continued, evolving into joint exercises, rotational deployments, and enhanced defense agreements. Yet today, profound questions arise. Where does Manila truly stand in an era of Chinese economic entanglement? As Chinese companies build ports, railways, and oil platforms across the archipelago, the Philippines finds itself at a strategic crossroads. American bases, long considered bulwarks of U.S. power projection, now sit within reach of newly emerging Chinese-funded infrastructure. Subic Bay, once the largest U.S. naval base outside America, could soon be neighbored by facilities operated or influenced by Beijing. Joint military exercises like Balikatan may continue, and defense officials in both countries reaffirm the alliance. But beneath the formalities, dual loyalties weigh heavily. Can a nation host U.S. troops while simultaneously allowing Chinese capital to anchor its critical infrastructure? Can it hedge between two superpowers without eventually being forced to choose? The U.S. Pacific Command views these developments with mounting concern. Pentagon planners, accustomed to clear lines of allegiance, are quietly revising contingency strategies to account for a more unpredictable Philippine posture. Washington diplomats are scrambling, offering expanded military aid, new trade deals, and promises of development projects to counter Chinese influence. Meanwhile, China plays a long game. By embedding itself into the Philippines' economic lifelines, Beijing seeks not an immediate military confrontation, but a slow erosion of Manila's strategic resolve. The goal is clear: make the Philippines increasingly hesitant to side against China in future regional disputes. For Manila, the path ahead is fraught with complexity. Pursuing economic growth through Chinese investment risks strategic vulnerability. Clinging too tightly to Washington risks missing out on vital development opportunities. The stage is set for a delicate and dangerous balancing act, one that will not only shape the Philippines' destiny, but could tip the balance of power across the entire Indo-Pacific. In the great game unfolding between China and the United States, the Philippines is no longer just a player. It is becoming one of the most critical battlegrounds. Economic temptation versus national identity. The Philippines stands at a pivotal crossroads, caught between urgent needs and enduring principles. After the economic devastation wrought by the COVID-19 pandemic, coupled with decades of underinvestment in critical infrastructure, the nation's hunger for modernization is undeniable. Roads, airports, bridges, and railways, projects once stalled by bureaucracy or lack of funding, now gleam on the horizon, fueled by Beijing's tantalizing offer of billions in investment. To many, the prospect is irresistible. Chinese-funded airports promise to connect remote provinces to booming regional hubs. New rail lines could slash transport costs, boost tourism, and ignite rural economies. Bridges spanning islands would weave the nation closer together, physically and economically. For a country long grappling with logistical bottlenecks, China's financial lifeline is a chance to leap decades ahead. Yet beneath the glitter lies a darker undercurrent. Critics warn that this influx of Chinese credit could lead the Philippines down a perilous path of debt diplomacy, a term that evokes chilling memories from elsewhere. Sri Lanka's experience looms large. Unable to service massive Chinese loans, Colombo was ultimately forced to lease its strategic Hambantota port to Beijing for 99 years. Sovereignty traded for solvency. Could the Philippines face a similar fate? Nationalist voices are sounding the alarm. Lawmakers, civil society groups, and ordinary citizens debate fiercely. Is material progress worth the potential erosion of national sovereignty? Can a country truly claim independence if its ports, power grids, and highways are built, and perhaps controlled by a foreign power? This debate rages across airwaves, newspapers, and the halls of Congress. Some argue for strict transparency and safeguards in all Chinese-backed projects. Others call for diversification, seeking investment from Japan, South Korea, and the United States to avoid overdependence on any single partner. At its core, the question confronting the Filipino people is not merely economic, it is existential. It strikes at the heart of national identity, pride, and the painful lessons of colonial history. The choices made today will echo for generations. Will the Philippines chart a course that balances growth with sovereignty? Or will it find itself entangled in another web of foreign influence, this time woven not by guns and warships, but by loans and construction contracts? Regional and global fallout. The Philippines' acceptance of China's sweeping offer has sent shockwaves through the Indo-Pacific region. Neighboring countries like Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia, each entangled in their own maritime disputes with Beijing, view Manila's pivot with growing alarm. They fear that the Philippines' cooperation could embolden China's territorial ambitions across the South China Sea, making it harder to resist creeping encroachments. Allies further afield are also sounding the alarm. Japan and Australia, two pillars of the US-led security architecture in Asia, have voiced concern about the shifting balance of power. For Washington, already stretched thin by crises in Europe and the Middle East, Manila's move poses a painful strategic dilemma. Should it double down on its commitments to the Philippines or reallocate resources to more reliable partners like Japan and Australia? Meanwhile, Taiwan watches anxiously from across the sea. The island's leaders worry that Manila's realignment signals a broader erosion of regional solidarity, leaving Taiwan increasingly isolated as it faces mounting pressure from Beijing. The Philippines' decision has not merely reshuffled diplomatic alliances, it has triggered a regional recalibration whose full consequences are only beginning to unfold. The Indo-Pacific chessboard is changing, and the next moves will be critical. Risks for both sides. For China, the stakes are immense. Missteps, such as overbearing demands, broken promises, or visible encroachments on Philippine sovereignty, could trigger a fierce backlash. Public outrage in Manila could undo years of careful diplomacy, pushing the Philippines back into the arms of the United States and its allies. Beijing's hard-earned influence would evaporate almost overnight. For Manila, the dangers are just as acute. An overdependence on Chinese investment and infrastructure could open the door to economic coercion and strategic manipulation. Once locked in, it may find its foreign policy autonomy compromised, its leverage diminished, and its traditional alliances strained beyond repair. Moreover, trust, both at home and abroad, is a fragile commodity. Alienating historic partners like the US, Japan, and Australia could carry lasting consequences, especially if China's promises fail to materialize or come with hidden costs. The Philippines now walks a razor's edge. Bold opportunities lie ahead, but so do profound risks. Navigating this high-stakes path will require deft leadership, national unity, and a keen sense of history. What happens next? In the immediate future, expect a surge of highly visible activity. Groundbreaking ceremonies for Chinese-funded infrastructure projects will dominate headlines, while energy exploration ventures in contested South China Sea waters will provoke sharp reactions. Diplomatic friction with the United States, Japan, and Australia will intensify. At home, protests and political resistance will grow louder, fueled by fears of sovereignty erosion. Meanwhile, China's naval and paramilitary forces are likely to increase their presence near Philippine-claimed reefs, raising the risk of flashpoints. Beyond the short term, the road ahead remains dangerously uncertain. Will this partnership deliver the prosperity it promises, or will it lead the Philippines into economic dependency and strategic vulnerability? The Filipino people stand at a historic crossroads. Bold leadership and national unity are needed to seize opportunities without surrendering autonomy. Missteps could leave Manila trapped in the orbit of a foreign power, a pawn in a broader geopolitical contest. China's offer brings riches, but with strings attached. The world watches, silent, tense, and waiting. A new era is dawning in the South China Sea, and the Philippines, by choice or by circumstance, has become its epicenter. The tides of history are shifting. The question remains, rise or fall. What do you think? Is this a bold step toward a stronger partnership? Or could it pull the Philippines into deeper geopolitical tensions? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear from you. If you found this breakdown insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into global affairs. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.